in the LHS gym served as an informational night for incoming freshmen, current students, and families. Classes and clubs set up tables staffed with teachers and students to answer questions and with promotion materials like flyers and pamphlets. One class many students and parents were asking about was a class run by Zachary Radicke, our CEL and wellness counselor. Livermore High School is looking for culture keepers. Our LHS students, which are invested in helping out the wellness center next year. It's like a new class. Becoming a culture keeper is a great opportunity for students to looking into a career as a psychologist or a therapist. This is an awesome add to our course calendar for next year. Thank you, and remember that today is a great day to be a cowboy.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Appreciate it. And now Loudon Philbrick from Granada.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, Cabinet, and community. As trimester 3 begins, students are settling into their new classes and preparing for the final trimester of the year. Next week, Spirit Games will take place for 2 consecutive weeks, where students will be showing off their best spirit in order to win an awesome prize. Granada Expo will take place next Wednesday, where incoming students will learn what Granada has to offer, such as our amazing clubs, activities, and academics. Spring sports have now officially began, and our boys golf team took first place in their most recent invitational. Varsity girls basketball played in their first NorCal tournament in 30 years. Congratulations to them and their incredible season. Our varsity boys basketball team play tonight at Contra Costa College against Salesian in the CIF State Division I Boys Basketball Regionals Finals Championships. Tongue twister. Congratulations to them and their historic season so far. Granada is excited to kick off the 3rd trimester, and we're even more excited to see what's in store in these upcoming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's quite an accomplishment right now. They're playing at Contra Costa Community College in the regional finals, so the winner goes to the state championship Division I. That's a big deal. So thanks for the update. Yeah? All right, we're going to go with our employee associations. All of our employees, there's about 1,500 of them. Everyone's represented, and so their elected leaderships comes and they share thoughts about what's going on within their respective organizations. And so this evening, Amy Thompson, president of LEA, is unable to make it, so Eileen Greenlee, who's our VP, is going to come up and speak.
Turning me on, or I turn it on?
You're on.
I'm on. Thank
You're
you.
on.
Okay. Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Van Schack, members of the board and cabinet. I am Eileen Greenlee, Vice President of the Livermore Education Association, representing teachers, nurses, psychologists, speech pathologists, and teachers on special assignment. As I near the end of my first term as LEA VP, I would like to reflect on why I felt and still feel passionate about my role in representing Livermore educators. After spending 20 years in the classroom and watching decisions being made that impacted my classroom, I felt frustrated. I wanted my experience, my expertise, and my knowledge to be valued. Since I was raised to be a problem solver, I took on this role in hopes of being the bridge between the decisions being made at the district level and how those decisions impacted the classroom. Over the last year and a half, while there are many accomplishments and successes that have been made, the bridge is still a work in progress. I recently read the book, The Infinite Game, and there was a chapter on trusting teams that really resonated with me. In this chapter, the author, Simon Sinek, says, trust is a feeling, and that you have to feel safe to be vulnerable. And that if leaders avoid the existence of feelings, their employees will lose trust in their leaders and eventually lose their high achievements or performance. As an elected leader of LEA, it is my duty to listen to the feelings, the struggles, the obstacles, and the problems our members are experiencing. By allowing our members to feel heard, we are actively cultivating an environment of trust in hopes of making a more productive team. The overall sentiment we hear from our members is that they feel dismissed in the decision-making that impacts their classrooms, their students, their site, and their district. So what I'm here tonight to ask is this: please listen to us, hear us, Believe us, trust us, and ask us. Ask all of us. For to complete the bridge, we must first create a trusting team and a trusting culture that will ultimately lead to a high-performing district that will allow all of our students to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. And we also have Stephanie Wagner, who's with CSEA, and I don't believe she's here tonight. And Kirsty Governor is SEIU rep, and then Lily Lopez does the CMCs. Moving into section 8 is communication from the public, and this is section A. Communication from our public is the time for the public to comment either in writing or verbally on any item that is not on our agenda. I mentioned this earlier with the TAN cards. Now, we, the board, may listen to the comment, and we may even ask staff clarifying questions following those comments. But items that are not on the agenda, we're unable to address or make comments on, and this is in accordance with the Brown Act. So anyone who would like to make a comment that is on something that's not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. And I have a few cards here, and I'll call folks up. And first off is Alex Izaraz. Izaraz.
Is it on? Okay.
Yes.
Good evening, board. As leaders in our district, we look to you as a voice for parents. I'm bringing this to you in hopes you will be my voice. Throughout my campaign, I was bashed and attacked online. As much as I didn't like the things being said, I felt I put myself out there and it came with the territory. However, as of recent as this last board meeting, I continue to be publicly bashed by a teacher in your district. I'm tired. I live in this community. I'm a mother speaking out for my children and other parents who are too afraid to speak for this exact reason. This individual has a following, and these horrible things are being spread about me and my community I live in. My child or children could have this individual as a teacher at some point, so I hope you can understand why this makes me uneasy. As a candidate, I can take being attacked online. However, as a mother who is no longer running a campaign, as well as other parents voicing their concerns, I cannot sit by and pretend this is okay. I have been blasted online, my child talked about in horrible ways, and to think my son may have to deal with this teacher is simply not okay. This is my formal request to ask that this person never teach either of my children in this district. These actions are not only unprofessional, but someone needs to be held accountable. I in no way mean any malicious intent, but I am sick of things being said about myself and other parents by an educator in this district. Recently, the district implemented a library committee and asked me to be a part of it. And when I told members in our community about this, many parents were excited and felt like the district is finally hearing us and wanting to bridge the gap between parents and the district. However, if this is the road that the district wants to continue on, something needs to be done here. Every single person deserves a right to their opinion. And when I ran for school board, I didn't agree with everyone's campaigns or what they stood for. But I respected each person for doing what they believed was right and for voicing their opinions and concerns and wanting to make a change for our community. Everyone deserves a right to their opinion, but when an educator can publicly bash a parent is a problem. What route is the right one when someone well-connected in our district is bashing parents, let alone my child? Saying something to the effect of, if you don't want us to speak about your child, you shouldn't have him publicly comment on school board meetings. I thank God I, for the most part, can take the hits, but no parent, no student should feel afraid or ashamed to come speak at a board meeting exercising their freedom of speech. I had more things I would have liked to talk about, like our children and things they're going through, but unfortunately I could no longer sit by and see these attacks. I want to end by saying thank you to the teachers, board members, district employees, who are respecting parents and the difference of opinions. We are all trying to do what's best for our children to grow and learn in a safe and healthy environment. I will not be made to fear speaking at a board meeting. I have fought so hard for parents in this district, and now I'm asking you to stand up for me and hold this person accountable. The list goes on and on of things that have been said. I have it all here, but I do hope that I hear from someone in this district about this. I hope that some action can be taken and I hear from someone about the things that I have been getting attacked online by a teacher here. I truly hope that some resolve can come from this. Thank you.
If you could, I just ask if you have some comments, if you could just hand them to our assistant superintendent. I appreciate it. Okay, our next speaker is Alex Pepper.
The mic still on?
It is.
Esteemed trustees, president, and superintendent, I'm Alexander Pepper, and I stand before you not only to speak for myself, but to voice the sentiments of many of my peers. Today, I bring to your attention a critical issue that has taken deep roots at the Granada campus and other schools within our district: hate speech. My fellow students and I have witnessed an alarming increase in derogatory and discriminatory behavior and language in our school, not over just weeks, but months and years. I recall the end of last year when I arrived at school early and saw that following a so-called senior prank, a swastika had been scrawled on one of the building's doors. As someone who has experienced online threats to kill me, my family, and others like me because of my religion, I cannot regard such symbols as merely a joke. While the administration handled the instance once reported, it isn't uncommon to see such symbols and other derogatory language written on desks, bathroom walls, or even the very textbooks meant to teach about such hate. Many of my fellow students share my feelings. While I will not mention their names, they've reported to me a variety of slurs, derogatory terms, and discriminatory actions directed at themselves and others on campus. As in any other community, or this one, hate speech has no place on our campus. Unfortunately, there is no action plan to address this issue at the current moment. Although I am able to personally feel safe at the current moment despite the appearance of such symbols, I know others that do not. As a student, it is my responsibility to condemn this cruelty and inhumanity. Every student should feel secure in their learning environment, and I'm grateful to those who have taken steps to ensure that. If we do nothing, I'm concerned about where such language might lead, as are many others here tonight. Trustees and everyone present, I implore you not to be idle and to help safeguard everyone from such hostility and hate. Thank you, and I yield my time to the board.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question on that, Mr. Van Schack, when we're talking about something like that. Would the process not be to, report that obviously to your teacher, but what would be the simple process for a student in that situation on a campus?
I would recommend they begin with the school administration. If they don't feel as though their concerns are addressed appropriately, they would then move on to either the Director of Student Services or the Director of Secondary Education and approach it from that direction. So again, I think as concerns are brought forward, hopefully actions are taken. If a student or a parent feels as though the actions are not adequate, then they just move up to, again, district level, and we would address it there.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that the public understands there's a process for that, and that anyone who comes up and speaks on that understands that there is a process we can remedy. Okay, thank you. Coming up next is Julia Cousin.
Still on?
It is.
Okay. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, and Superintendent Van Schack. Just yesterday, we asked our fellow students what they have heard on campus that was homophobic. The response was overwhelming and unanimous. There's so much. Where do I start? A member of our own community recently stated that, quote, girls are afraid to use locker rooms or bathrooms, and straight boys are afraid to say that they are just that, a straight boy, unquote. These lies lead to the statistics that we see today. 29% of transgender youth have been threatened or injured on school property. That's just in 2023. I'm a student of Granada High School, and I have many friends. I'm here tonight to tell you that Granada refuses to accept these claims as factual. The student body accepts these claims as blatant lies. It is not the straight cis people of our campus that feel scared or targeted. It is the LGBTQ that walk into school wondering if they're going to walk out with a black eye or a shattered soul. False claims coming from the representatives of their schools are exactly what reduces safety and inclusivity in the LVJUSD. I ask the school board to take initiative and make the campus safe and open rather than silencing the precious voices of our students. We do panorama surveys every year. Use them. Take advantage of the resources and actually listen to the student accounts rather than making assumptions based on circulating biased ideas. Look at the statistics and actually listen to the students who are claimed to be represented here. I ask that we focus less on consequences and more on prevention. Stop silencing conversations and beating around the bush. Stop disregarding the panorama surveys and stop being ashamed of talking about LGBTQ resources and inclusivity. Stop politicizing the safety of students at schools. Let's get required teacher training on recognizing signs of threats, discrimination, and harmful mentality before it develops into something more, as we've seen with the astounding and disgusting amount of gun violence all around the US. Remember that biased ideas lead to motivated violence. Let's practice accountability together. There's nothing that harms the bright minds of Granada more than discrimination. California cannot claim to be progressive until the measures stated are acted upon, and that starts with the LVJUSD. My name is Julia Cousin, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Trenton Thompson. Evening, Trenton.
Good evening, members of the board, President
Let's,
Bueno.
let's make sure the mic's close to you. It's on. Just get it close. There you go.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board, President Bueno, and Superintendent Chris Van Schack. My name is Trenton Thompson, and I am a junior at Granada High School. I am here on behalf of a student group dedicated to examining the best ways to combat discriminatory speech on campus and how to properly train teachers and students on how to enact real change. I am an out and proud queer student at Granada, and I am here today because of the immense hate speech on campus. Just last week, I heard the F slur so many times in one 70-minute class. I hear "that's so gay" every single day on my campus. I have been called gay before I even knew what that word meant. Every single day I walk onto campus and I wonder if that is the day I will be the next queer student to be targeted for who I am and who I love. I do not feel safe at the place where I am supposed to expand my knowledge. How am I supposed to be safe? We are being targeted across the nation. Do not think that just because we live in California that we are immune from homophobia. Listening to parents at these meetings actively be homophobic and push for the same laws being passed in Florida and Tennessee is a disgrace. How are students supposed to feel safe to be themselves at the school here if students can say slurs and intimidate students on a daily basis with what appears to be little to no consequence? When my own teachers are called the N-word for trying to combat racist hate speech on campus, how do you expect me to do it? This community needs to better educate themselves and do better. Protect queer students and give us the space needed to thrive. This problem will not be solved through one training or one meeting. This problem will not be fixed when I leave this district, but I believe progress can be made. Think of the future children who deserve to have a safe learning environment. I ask the board to please do more. I ask to better support the students and the staff to more effectively create a positive school culture and learning environment. Please provide training and make this a priority with trainings and much needed conversations. Invest in your students and your teachers' safety. Help me make this district and school a safer place. I invite you all to join me and other students concerned at our lunch meetings every Monday. We need your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Emily Wilson.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, board members, Superintendent Van Schack, Cabinet, and community. My name is Emily Wilson, and I was an LVJUSD student, and am currently substitute teaching in our district. I am here again tonight speaking up to support our queer students. The transgender community is under attack nationwide and locally in our school district. In these meetings, the calls for eradication of trans folks is a call for genocide. I am working with some brave students at Granada who are taking initiative to support their peers and call for change. These students are doing something my peers and I didn't have the courage to do, and we should be so proud to have them in our schools. The bottom line is students do not feel safe on our campuses. They don't feel supported by our district, and we are here to demand changes made. We want LVJUSD to provide continuous education and training that's required for all staff and administrators to foster a safe environment on our campuses. We want to enhance our curriculum to be more inclusive to the queer community and other marginalized groups. We're calling for LVJUSD to hold employees and students accountable when using hateful language. This isn't about any agenda other than saving lives. LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. Black, transgender, and non-binary youth report disproportionate rates of suicide risk. 1 in 4, 25% of Black, transgender, and non-binary young people reported a suicide attempt in the past year, in 2022. LGBTQ youth who found their school and home to be LGBTQ affirming reported lower rates of attempting suicide. I'm going to close with a quote from a student that has shared firsthand experience as a queer student at Granada. This is their quote. They didn't want to speak at the meeting, so I'm speaking on behalf of them. I have had numerous encounters with homophobia from students, including but not limited to posts online making fun of me for being gay, homophobic jokes being told to my face and behind my back, being called the F slur, being threatened with rape, having false sexual rumors about me spread, and more. That's the end of the quote. Trans and queer students deserve to be here. To our LVJUSD queer community, you deserve to feel safe on your school campus. You are valid in your identity, you are loved, and you are seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, our final speaker under public comment is Jamie Mitchell.
Hello. Hello. Okay.
You're good.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Mitchell. I am an alumni of the LVJUSD School District. I graduated from Granada in 2016. I'm sure we can all agree that we want all children to be safe, to be loved, and to feel seen. Unfortunately, the LGBTQ plus youth are at risk. They are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their peers. This is a safety concern we must turn our attention to. That is not just a statistic. Those are real people, children, who need our support. So what can we do? We can start the conversation. I am asking the board to help require our staff to have continuous education and training so that they can lead the way in fostering a safe environment in our schools, to hold employees and students accountable for the hateful language that we have heard here tonight. And lastly, to implement inclusive curriculum in all schools for the queer community, meaning let's ask for pronouns in classes. Let's have a class about gender identity where we can create a safe place for gaining knowledge and clearing out misinformation. It is clear there's so much misinformation, misunderstanding about gender identity and what it means to be LGBTQ and what LGBTQ plus inclusive curriculum looks like. To the parents who are uneasy about inclusive curriculum, I want to point out that it is impossible to shelter your kids from the knowledge of queerness. You have a choice. Either allow your children the opportunity to learn about queerness from an instructor in a factual and age-appropriate setting,
What's your time?
or continue to allow your kids to learn about queerness via the internet and their friends. If I could just finish with, if you are straight, LGBTQ, transgender, cisgender, gender nonconforming, you are exactly who you are supposed to be. You are valued, you are important. We are not all meant to be the same, and that is a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That closes our public comment, and we're going to go into 8.2B. This is correspondence. Formal written correspondence to the Board of Education shall be acknowledged if received by the board or in the superintendent's office by 4 p.m. the day before the meeting. Formal written correspondence received after the cutoff time will generally be acknowledged at our following meeting. Just note that it's the board electronic communications received via the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District website by accessing the formal written correspondence to the Board of Education link. All fields completed and verified, that shall be treated as formal board correspondence. I'd ask our clerk, Trustee Prusso, if there's any correspondence, and if so, if you'd summarize, please.
President Bueno, we had no board correspondence prior to the deadline.
All righty, thank you. I think one came in late. We'll probably have that on the next one, yeah. Okay. So we're going to go into our discussion item, section 9. Mr. Van Schack, if you could introduce that, please.
Thank you, President Bueno. I'd like to re-invite Dr. Laura Lembo up to the front. I believe Mr. Ravi Pravala, VP, is going to aid her in providing the board and the community with information about the many things that are going on at Joe Mitchell K.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Van Schack, Board Trustees, and Cabinet. I'm Laura Lembo, Principal of Joe Mitchell. Joining me here to present our school report is Vice Principal Ravi Prabhala. Our story, the Joe Mitchell story, is a story of resilience coming out of a global pandemic. Joe Mitchell is returning to our IB roots this year. As students returned to school, we realized early on that we had to meet them where they are, or where they were. Our district multi-tiered system of support, our MTSS goals, were timely and provided the foundation for this work. I'm happy to report that Joe Mitchell is returning to the school that it was just 3 years ago. Field trips and assemblies have returned. Students are participating in after-school sports in record numbers this year. I think having our gym has helped to foster our school culture to one of support and pride. We had our first Math Counts team finish in the top 3, and one of our students finished second in that speed round. Another source of pride is that our community continues to show incredible support for our school through fundraising and school community events sponsored by our Friends of Joe Mitchell organization. The mission of IB has always been to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people who help to create a better, more peaceful world through intercultural and understanding and respect. Community service and contributing to make a difference in our community and beyond is what IB Action is all about. The IB Action part of our program has returned this year with surprising results. From the unique ways that our elementary students raised money for the Wheelchair Foundation to our 8th grade community projects, our student and school community have embraced the opportunities to make a difference, both locally and globally. This commitment demonstrates the value of an IB education when students are given opportunities to put our mission into practice. We have had to create new international partnerships that connect our students to the global community. And we look forward to years ahead with these caring communities. As you can see from our demographics, we value diversity and inclusion at Joe Mitchell. Part of our school mission is to empower compassionate global citizens who understand, respect, and appreciate diverse traditions and seek to create positive change. Our academic program supports students as they acquire the skills they need to appreciate and contribute to our diverse and complex society. The IB learner profile traits are the heart of every IB program and are taught intentionally throughout elementary and middle school. We're making up for lost time and a loss of instruction from some of our students, or for some of our students. This year, our elementary team implemented universal access. This time is provided to target instruction to students identified using our Easy CBM and other assessments. I feel so fortunate to have such dedicated teachers who seek out training. For example, in our kindergarten and first grade teams, they're implementing the new science of reading strategies and practices. And in our middle school, our math team, they're implementing more visual math strategies. And then, of course, in our core team, our middle school core team, they're now implementing AVID strategies to help support our students and to make up for that lost time. As I mentioned earlier, we had to meet our students where they were both academically and socially and emotionally. Our teachers have made an incredible effort to reconnect with their students and create a safe and nurturing learning environment for all. One student group we noticed that were most impacted during distance learning were our English learners. We had identified 8 students who actually regressed more than one language level. But our teachers, they saw that information, they got right to work, providing additional English language development to support them. I'm happy to report that they have made incredible growth, and they will continue to do so now that we know who they are and what they need. Our school culture is returning to one of care and compassion again, due in large part to our focus on the IB traits. We've implemented a positive behavior interventions and support, our PBIS, and aligned with those 10 traits. Of course, having new buildings provided the perfect opportunity to implement school-wide expectations for all our new spaces. Joe Mitchell is a school in continuous improvement, not just in preparation for our next IB evaluation, but because we are always reflecting on our past practices and looking for ways we can make it even better. This year, our professional learning communities returned with a focus on learning needs of our students. And we are so excited to see the progress our students are making because of that time given our professionals. Robbie?
In our MYP, our middle school teachers are determining essential standards to target specific skill deficits identified through assessment. To continue our culture of kindness, social emotional learning is explicitly taught during a weekly 25-minute advisory. Recent topics include assumptions and stereotyping, challenging prejudice and discrimination, and accepting differences. All of our students, TK through 8, participate in our Project Lead the Way STEM curriculum. And Joe Mitchell has been awarded Distinguished Program Recognition for 4 of the last 5 years. We are also excited to offer AVID to all of our middle school students next year, aligning with the IB approaches to learning, where students will be developing and practicing skills in thinking, communication, self-management, research, and social skills.
So in summary, Joe Mitchell is getting back to our IB roots, and we are enjoying the journey.
Thank you very much. I believe we have one comment card on this. Christy Barcelona. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thanks. So we'll close public comment on this, my mistake, and open it up for board. We'll start with Trustee Pruso.
Thank you for coming to share with us. Definitely Joe Mitchell is a special school, and I really enjoy visiting there. I do have one question. I can see that you guys are getting back on, like you said, getting back on track, and you're doing a lot of things. I like your culture of kindness and all of that stuff that's happening. Some of the other schools had a connections with an adult percentage. I think it was from the Panorama survey. Is that what it's from? Do you have that data? I'm just curious. It doesn't look like you have it on here unless I didn't look at the right. Oh, you do?
It's under school success data.
Okay.
And we broke it out specifically because we noticed that there was quite a difference in terms of middle school versus our elementary. And being that elementary students are within a self-contained class, we knew that we had to put more strategies in place for middle school students since they have a variety of teachers throughout the day.
Okay, there you have it. Thank you. I missed it somehow.
Thank you. Trustee Wong.
Thank you for coming, and it's always exciting to celebrate Joe Mitchell and all the great work you do there. I just have a quick question, just because I think this sounds really interesting, the culture of kindness. I don't think I've heard about that. Can you describe that a little bit?
Certainly. So there are, it's actually a curriculum, it's a textbook that we used in addition to our Choose Love curriculum. It really does, I think, apply more to our approaches to learning skills, which is required by IB. And so through those activities, it allows students to engage with each other and kind of reflect on their own beliefs and then apply those in small group settings. I'm happy to share that curriculum if you ever stop by.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Drone.
I just wanted to say how proud I am of Joe Mitchell, the faculty, the staff. It's just, I can't articulate how proud I am of you, but building from the IB traits, it's been such a pleasure to see how ingrained IB is in every classroom that I've touched, which is several of them. And I think that it's just it's wonderful that it's not an add-on. It's part of the culture of the fabric of the school, and I know that that's hard to do, and so I just applaud you, your team, the faculty, and the staff of really owning and being IB, so thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Guzman?
Thank you. This is great, and I really appreciate it that, you know, almost all of us had a really difficult time during COVID, but that your staff and under your leadership, you took the time to identify the 8 students, English learners, and dug in deep. I'm curious to know what other levels of intervention were used to get them up to, you know, to regress an entire year of language proficiency is huge. And then to make the quick strides that they did is also exceptional.
I think the first part is once you identify who the students are and what their needs are, then you design instruction to meet that. So that is either in small group instruction or with your awareness, then you're supporting the student throughout the school day. The majority of these students were elementary students, so I believe that it was easier to identify and target throughout the day. The middle school students required additional support, both in core and then also teachers working with them outside of their class period.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you both for the nice presentation. You're doing great work over there. And I'm hoping you're enjoying the new facilities.
Loving them.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well deserved, too. I'm glad the kids are doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty.
All right,
Next
I'd like
one.
to now invite Mr. Clark Conover back up. He and if Summer's going to join you, or she's just here for moral support. Either way, Mr. Conover will provide us with some information similar in format to that about Granada High School.
Okay, it's on, sounds like. I'm sorry, last time it tricked me. Hey, welcome back. Granada High School is a good school. We're working every day to make it a better school where kids do feel safe and connected to our campus. Currently, there 69% of our students earn academic honors. That was based on trimester 1, and I had to round down a little bit. I bet by the end of the year it's over the 70% mark. 822 students will take AP tests. We offer an IB program. 55% of our students participate on athletics teams. 9 of the 13 of our athletic teams qualified for the NCS championships. Just an update. At halftime, Granada was up by 7, so that's good.
Still up.
We have 46 active clubs on campus, and those are renewed each year, so that it doesn't like those 46 carry over the next year. Some of them do, kids are involved and they enroll, but if there's an interest on campus at a club that a student wants to do, they find a club advisor and they start a club. Our teachers care about kids and they want to help them out. Our demographics are continuously to change. As you can look, we're getting more and more diverse. We're still predominantly white. However, that number is going down, and our other ethnicities are rising up. So it's a great, diverse group of students. I've made it my screensaver on my computer at work. At the basketball the other night, we had the girls and boys play. The gym was packed with electric. At the boys game, one of our players tossed it up. Andrew McKeever slams it, and our crowd went bonkers. I haven't. That percentage looks just like my crowd. Like I've got different kids from all walks of life, all different backgrounds there, and it's beautiful. In our data, this is what it is. Our math scores, are the glaring thing to me right now. They're low, and we've got to figure out something to do with them. Right now, we have a math academy, which helps support some of our students that are struggling with it. We have math office hours, and one thing I've been pushing this year is to use some of our community resources. Our district has a partnership with the Livermore Library. Every student has a library card. Their ID gives them access to the library. With that, there is something called tutor.com that students are able to, any time of day, any time at night, log in and get help on many different subjects. My own daughters who are students in this district have used it for math help. I bring students into my office all the time when they need help, and I tell them about our teachers offering their office hours, some of the community resources. Las Positas offers tutoring, and then this tutor.com, but they have more than just math on there too. They have world languages, chemistry, and everything else. It's great. Our attendance rates are pretty good, 96.39%. We're always hoping to improve them, but we do a good job by following up with calls and letting parents know the importance of having their students in school. The other area we're really working on this year too is some of our EL students. The progression, they're at 42%. We've examined the last 2 years. We've kind of, what we're doing with our ELD classes is we've structured them in the fact that it makes it easy when students do take the LPAC and get reclassified, we're able to easily move them up to the next class without disrupting the rest of their schedule, and it seems to be working. Our suspensions are relatively low, 4.6, but we're trying to beat through some of our strategies through PBIS and just trying to get kids connected with schools, like I said, through sports, clubs, activities, music. We found that if our students are involved with something, it helps with the discipline. My projects for this year is to guide our students to choose classes to prepare them for college, career, and our workforce. Improve our cost meetings. I had one today. Every Tuesday, we have a group of our educators at Granada get together and talk about some of our struggling students and what we can do to support them. We've also implemented something called Matador Moments, and that's a weekly segment that allows our school to make connections with each other. It's the last 10 minutes of period 3. We do everything from a name that tune to icebreakers in there to more delicate matters on reinforce some of our social emotional learning. I've sent out a weekly newsletter every Friday. I've done it since the start of the school year, and I'm impressed. I shouldn't say I'm impressed with myself because I'm not, but I'm impressed with the newsletter. Every week it has analytics. I get over 5,000 views, and I've said it before, even in Europe, someone's checking it out. So we're worldwide. We're going to continue with our PBIS, and we hope to increase the number of students involved in our school activities and keep building upon the culture of Granada and just make it a better place.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. We have no cards on this, so we'll close public comment. And we have some board comments, and we'll begin with Trustee Guzman.
Thank you. 2 questions. How typically, when is the algebra class test or the passage rate? Typically, when do we anticipate students taking that test? And then how does that relate to, because it's 83% passage rate, and then how does that relate to the 44% kind of CASP math?
Yeah, great question. So the algebra passage rate is, so they typically students will either take that test at the end of trimester 2 to complete the sequence, or the end of trimester 3. The math CASP test, although it does cover algebra, it actually goes above algebra a little bit. So that's one of the challenges we have, is trying to figure out, hey, how can we expose our students to that information? Recently, UC has approved for statistics to count as a third year of math. So we're hoping that by doing that, we're going to encourage more students to take math. So currently, students, a lot of kids will take the 2 years of math and be done because they're not interested in algebra 2. But we think statistics, which will start next year, will get them to take more math.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Drone.
I was wondering if you could elaborate a little on the number of students involved in a school activity. I mean, 46 clubs, that's a lot. And looking at athletics, I just think that, you know, helping students to see each other and recognize each other and celebrate the diversity is clubs do that, athletics do that. I'm just interested in, because I see that kind of as helping. I mean, my wrestling team at Tokay High, it was tremendously diverse, and it was probably one of the best experiences I had was interacting with people that were very different from me. And I'm just curious about some intentional efforts that you have to try to improve and encourage opportunities like that at Granada.
Yeah, so in fact, next week we have the Granada Expo. At that time, it's for incoming freshmen that they come and they take a look at our school, and we'll have tables set up, but not just the academics, but we'll have our athletics set up with all the teams just to get an interest in what we have to offer at Granada High School. Also, in the fall, we have a club rush where students are able to go around and take a look what we have to offer. Also, in our FIT classes, they do the first few days in FIT. They talk about kind of our clubs and what we have to offer, and if like I said, if there's not an interest, what they need to do to get into one of the clubs. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Trustee Pruso.
Thank you for coming to share a little bit about Granada. Just a quick question. What night is the expo? Next week? I didn't have that on my calendar.
It is next Wednesday. Yes, the 15th. Okay. I need my calendar in front of me, but Wednesday.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to say, I think Granada has historically and still, I feel like your school does a really great job getting kids to come and participate in sports at whatever level they're at, which I think is great. And as Stephen mentioned, I think just being involved is something that really helps our students with their emotional well-being. So I want to congratulate you on that. And then just one other little thing. I don't know if the other schools have this, but somehow I found or am following the Humans of Granada Instagram page and love that page. Makes me cry, makes me laugh. It's really cute. I don't know if the other schools are doing it, but whoever's running that, great job. I don't know who's doing it.
You know what's amazing about that? So what the Humans of Granada is, it's kind of an Instagram post, and they focus on a student. Someone connected with Granada, and they tell their story.
Yeah.
And it got started a few years ago, I think during the shutdown. And since then, those kids have graduated, but before they leave, they pass it on to somebody else at Granada that are kind of the caretakers of that.
Yeah,
and
it's really
continue.
great. I'd love
Thank
to
you.
see that at the other schools. I think it's great.
Thank you. Trustee Wong.
Mr. Conover, you know, I'm a big fan. My daughter just graduated last year from Granada and had the good fortune of having you as her vice principal. And I will say now, so far in her first year of college, she has been tremendously well prepared for college. So I'm very grateful to Granada. I wanted to sort of acknowledge your students who came tonight for their courage. It's a very difficult thing to speak about. And some of those issues my daughter had talked to me about too while she was there. And I did try to speak to some folks about it. You know, they're hard to address. And I have to admit that I didn't get a lot of acknowledgement. I didn't speak to you, so I'm not talking about you, but didn't get a lot of acknowledgement or confirmation that that was indeed happening, even though I believe my daughter. And so I'm very grateful to the students who came tonight. And I think part of it, probably because you are their principal and they know you care and you are listening, and I know you're trying to work on that. But you know, I 100% support efforts to address that through trainings for teachers, students, some of the things that they spoke about. And also, you know, in the audience tonight, Summer Newkirk, I know she's been just a really great support system for all of the students at Granada. And I think if we look at the panorama numbers and you know, you're asking, are you connected with an adult at school? I venture to guess if they had to name someone, her name would come up the most times. or at least one of them. So I want to really express appreciation to her while she's here tonight and embarrass her. Yeah, so I just wanted to take time to say that since you're here. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is I'm happy to hear that you're really focusing on the math numbers. And this is something, you know, that's a challenge all across the country at every school. And I've mentioned several times that my husband and I tutor at Livermore High on Wednesday nights, and there are, I think, 5 or 6 lab scientists who tutor there, and they can tutor every math and science that comes to them, and I listen in on them work with the students. It's amazing how, you know, they work at this level of science, but they can explain any level of math and science in a way that's understandable to a high school student. And I know the lab director is very supportive of her staff taking work time to tutor our students and work with students in our district, and it has to be before 5 p.m. And so if you ever want to set up something in after-school tutoring, I know I can get scientists there because they're all looking for opportunities like that.
I'll take you up on that.
And then Granada students are welcome to come to Livermore High too. It's okay. They won't, you know, be fried or anything by crossing the border. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Wong.
Ms. Newkirk's awesome.
I just want to say I appreciate the report you're bringing to us. And as someone, I mean, I've actually worked with you in coaching and been on the campus and stuff. I've been on that campus for 19 years. And just like as a comment and an observation for some of the folks who might be watching, because those concerns that might be brought about things, the campuses are not an easy thing to manage. But I have full faith in you, Mr. Conover. I mean, I've seen what you've done. I've watched you work with youth for almost 20 years that I've been there. You do an exceptional job, and I would agree with Trustee Wong that some of those kids that might bring forth some issues that might be difficult, I think it's because of you and the faith that they have in you that, you know, they have a high degree of confidence in you. And I think that I've seen you work with kids that have no money, kids that are kind of privileged, and everyone in between, kids that have particular issues, and you deal with those issues exceptionally. And so I have full faith in what you're going to do over there, and I know that Granada's a good campus, and you're just continually making it better. No one's sitting on their hands there. I've personally watched it, so thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. 9-3, please.
Yeah, and I'll just echo, President Bueno, your comments that I really respect those students for coming forward and engage in a very difficult conversation. But I believe that the team at Granada, the administrative team, the teacher leaders, they will absolutely step up and take those comments seriously, and I know they will participate in actions that will help to make that situation better. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Frank Salvaggio. He is going to come forward with his assistant Zandra Teixeira, who will aid him in presenting information to the board and the community about our special education program.
He got you. There you go. You're on.
Oh, there we go. It was left on. Okay. President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and Executive Cabinet. As was mentioned, my name is Frank Salvaggio. I'm the Executive Director for Special Education for Livermore. And this is Zandra Teixeira, who's our coordinator. And one thing I do want to say about Zandra is since she has come in, she has just been a great partner with me. I've been very grateful for the work she's done. She's made me a better leader. And so I'm really grateful for all that you've done this last few years with us. I also want to introduce our program specialists. You guys want to stand up? And I'm very proud of them as well. We make a great team together. We have a good time, but we know there's a lot of hard work that we're responsible for.
So tonight, we want to review for you our programming, some data, parent communication, as well as looking to the future. On this first slide, you will see a picture from this year's Halloween. We like to be playful and have fun in our department. So you will see some of our program specialists as well as our support staff within the office. Our theme was Alice in Wonderland.
So when we talk about special education, there's words and phrases that are very critical. The first one is a free and appropriate public education. The term appropriate is still, I think, out for debate. There's been some case law on it, but I think in the end, it's our responsibility to provide an education that be commensurate with peers and providing them the supports they need to be successful. There's also, we're talking about federal and state mandates, and so these are things that we're required to do. Least restrictive environment. The one thing I will continue to say about this, because I believe it from the bottom of my heart, when special education originally came about in the 70s through PL 94-142, it was about making it available for kids with special needs to not be in segregated environments, not to be in separate schools, but to be with their peers on campus. Not all our kids can be in general ed classrooms full time, but they need to have access to their general education peers, and we continue to fight for that. Accommodations and modifications. Accommodations, bottom line is we're doing things to accommodate the student to equal the playing field for them. So that could be anything from shortening assignments to sitting up front to doing what's necessary for them to access that curriculum. When we modify, though, it means we're adjusting the curriculum from its original expectations. And so modifications do happen with kids in special education, though they couldn't happen with a student on a Section 504 plan. We want to see progress. If we're not seeing progress, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, and so we have to go back and find out why that is not happening. And then parent rights is the other part. Parents have a lot of rights, but we believe, and I believe it strongly, that our parents are the ones that know their child best, and we want to support them accordingly.
In Livermore, we have a wealth of knowledgeable specialists and support staff, from speech and language pathologists to our behavior specialists, to licensed mental health therapists, as well as our very own program specialists that are here tonight. And all of those specialists and service providers support our variety of programs within the district. A few of the programs that I wanted to highlight for you tonight are the programs that have been supporting us with making sure our students have access to their general education peers at our sites. As you can see, we have a variety of programs because we want to make sure we're responsive to our students' needs. But those programs that have been making sure that we're giving them that access to general education are resource co-teaching, our mild moderate co-teaching, our SDC Learning Center over at Smith and Junction. Our resource teachers there have done a phenomenal job of no longer pulling students out for resource support, but now the teachers are pushing in to provide that resource support.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss to not mention the fact that we have obviously a lot of other programming as well to meet our needs of kids that have more severe disabilities. And so we do have what we call functional academic and functional life skills class for our students that have more of those intense needs. Every department needs a vision. We have to know what we're about. And in special education, we really seek to stay focused on a handful of things. And I've listed those areas there for you. In the end, none of this can happen without our teachers, without our paraeducators. And so we do provide a lot of professional development to ensure that they're able to accomplish the goals that we set forth. But if you were to wonder, what we talk about, these are the things we talk about on this list.
To start with reviewing our data, our first data point is our inclusion data. So from the state CDE, one of their expectations by 2025 was for us to have 70% of our students in general education for at least 80% of their day. At the beginning of the school year in August, we had 62% of our students in general education for 80% of their day. In February of this school year, we currently have 72% of our students in general education for 80% of their day, which means we have surpassed that goal for 2025 2 years early.
So let's celebrate a student right now. Before you is Tommy Hughes. He goes to Emma Smith Elementary School. Last year, Tommy would have been in what would be called a self-contained mild moderate classroom. But we implemented learning centers recently at Emma Smith. And so now what happens to Tommy is he gets to go into general ed classrooms with support And with him in that support is also the teacher, which is Teresa Garcia on the right. She's the general ed teacher, and Emily Wang, who is the special education teacher. So they work together in ensuring that Tommy is successful. Well, this year, I'm so excited to tell you, Tommy placed 4th place overall at Emma Smith in the spelling bee contest. Previously, Tommy may have not even had that opportunity if he wasn't in general education enjoying that opportunity. And so I am so grateful for Joe, our principal, Joe Meunier, and just the vision that he has really been able to implement from the original idea of learning centers. And we're really proud that Tommy has been successful this year.
So our next data point is our graduation rates. So you can see over the last 6 years, we've been averaging between 75% to 85% of our students with IEPs graduating on an annual basis. In the 2021-2022 school year, 85% of our students with IEPs graduated at the end of the year. The state average is 73.8% of students with IEPs graduating. So again, we surpassed that average as well. However, our goal is always for our students to be graduating at 100%. So still something we're working on, but definitely something that we're doing better compared to the state.
Yeah, and I honestly believe it would be a lot lower if it wasn't for our special ed staff over there. They do at all our campuses, at our high school campuses, they do a lot of credit recovery, they do a lot of support of students, they do classes to ensure that they can be successful. And while we will continue to focus on increasing those rates, without them, that could never happen. I do want to mention our CASP results. Look, I'm going to be really honest up front and say we're not thrilled that our CASP results are 21.5% and 18.12%. But I will say that if you look at the trajectory, you'll notice that the trend is up. And I think that is really important. We had a little dip in ELA last year. We had a little raise in math. But I just want to say that what we're doing is showing progress. And in the end, that's what you ask for. Are we making progress in the work we're doing? And I think our data shows that we are making that progress with some of the programs we're implementing. Do I want to get them equal with peers? Yeah, I do want that. But at least the trend is going the right way. I have the next one. Our special ed numbers. You know, they've gone up a little bit since 2017-18. They've been relatively flat, really, the last number of years. Of course, we got to look at 2021 and 21-22 because we lost kids, but our special ed numbers have remained pretty consistent. So, yeah, I mean, this is a trend we know nationwide that is going on since we've gotten back from COVID. There's a lot of kids that have had a lot of learning loss. I think we deal with a lot of referrals for special education because of that learning loss to this day. But our numbers are where they're at right now.
So always with talking about data, yes, we want to look at areas that we're doing well in, but we always want to focus on areas of improvement where we can potentially grow. So as you can see with chronic absenteeism, the 21-22 school year was definitely an area where we could improve. For both general education and special education, there was a pretty steep increase in chronic absenteeism. This is not only in Livermore, but also a nationwide and statewide problem. That's not to say that we're not concerned. And so we are working on a problem to address this, or I'm sorry, a plan to address this moving forward. So as far as our parent communication goes, we are very lucky to have our Livermore Special Needs Parent Group that meets monthly to support our parents. They are a great ally for us, but an enormous asset for our parent community that provides monthly meetings on a variety of topics, and they're a tremendous support for our district. We also started providing a trimester trimester newsletter this year that we're pushing out to parents with communication. I'll show you what that looks like in the next slide. And we were also lucky to have hosted our adult transition fair this year in February at Granada High, where we had about 40 vendors that had different supports for students transitioning from high school to adulthood, and we had about over 100 parents that attended. It was a great turnout. So for our special education parent newsletter, we had the first one go out in November. The second one just went out this month. And we've had a lot of great positive parent feedback. They're able to actually recognize staff in their newsletter as well. And then I share that out with our staff in the monthly newsletter that we provide for our staff. And parents have been very appreciative of the communication that they're receiving.
So moving forward, I'll let you read the list. Most of this is somewhat familiar. We had mentioned about doing an implementation of a chronic absenteeism improvement plan. I do want to say there's something new we'll be doing next year, which is the therapeutic behavior intervention program. This is we're finding that still a number of our kids on campus that are having pretty significant behaviors. So we're going to start programming next year where we're going to address that programming, and this will be in conjunction with moving away from one of our non-public school partnerships. We're going to be able to provide this support. So I just want to let you know that we'll be doing that. And then going on to the last slide, I want to just highlight somebody. Some of you may or may not have heard of Judy Human. Judy was a person that grew up and lived in New York, tried to become a teacher, was told she couldn't be a teacher because she was in a wheelchair. And this was in 1970. Judy fought it, and she became the first person with a disability in a wheelchair to be able to teach in the New York school system. I mention that because Judy died on Saturday. And Judy was a fighter for disability rights and was heavily involved in the disability civil rights movement through the years. She had this quote to say that I think really says it well for us. We tend to think that equality is about treating everyone the same, when it is not. It is about fairness. It is about equal access. And in the end, for our students, it's about equal access. We don't want, and they don't want to be treated differently. They just want to know that they have equal access to be successful. And that's our mission in the end, is to make sure that's the case. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So yes, we have Christy Barcelona. Yeah, of course. And the mic is on.
Hello, everyone. Last year I spoke after this same presentation as a parent and a teacher within the co-taught class. This year I just wanted to highlight some of the words of the parents of the students in our 5th grade co-taught class. I'm the special ed teacher within the 5th grade co-taught class at Arroyo Seco. And the first parent, and I'm not going to say any names or anything, but I did want to just say that this is a parent of a non-binary student in my class, and so I will use the they, them pronouns. And after hearing kind of the needs of our older students, I also wanted to say that as a teacher at the elementary level, I would also welcome any training to help support the LGBTQ community. But she writes, the co-taught program has developed my child's skills in many areas. I will highlight just a couple of them here. First, I've seen my child grow in awareness and compassion. Second, they often reflect on differences among people and acknowledge the validity of different ways of being in the world. Watching them hold space without negative judgment for the choices, needs, and opinions of others makes me feel proud and grateful. I'm sure that the co-taught program has significantly boosted my child's skills in those areas and many more. I strongly urge continued and expanded support of this program. I asked for feedback from all of the parents, and I received feedback from 3 parents of general ed students, so that's what I'm sharing today. Here's the second one. As a parent of a student without an IEP in co-taught this year, my daughter has greatly benefited and has enjoyed the classroom, teachers, and support staff thoroughly. This program allows the teachers and support staff to offer additional resources and interventions to all students. Students' academic and emotional well-being are top priority. I'm lucky my daughter was in the co-taught class this year. And the third one, I believe that co-teaching was an excellent opportunity for my daughter, and I appreciate her placement in the class. She benefited by having another teacher to help with her work. I encourage LVJUSD to continue support for inclusive classrooms. So thank you again for providing this opportunity. This is my 5th year teaching this program, and nothing makes me want to do anything else. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one more speaker, Verena Michaelis or Michaels.
She said you got it. I didn't plan anything, so I apologize. I didn't
Oh,
quite
that's
know
fine.
how it works. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I have dealt with quite a few of you on a personal nature. My daughter has gone through the special ed system from day one. She is currently in her 2nd year of the transition program. And I've been blessed to go through all the different directors. You're good. You were good. Frank is the best. I cannot say enough how important it is to trust people with your child of a special. It's hard enough with just your normal kids, no offense, but when you have a child with special needs who cannot talk and you're the only one for it, to have that trust and know that they've got your back. And I'm the biggest mama bear you can possibly imagine. If you're wrong, I'll call you out on it. I've learned a little bit of class along the way, how to deal with things. At the same time, I know that if I feel there's something wrong, I will bring it to, my daughter's class is at Lawrence. She's in the transition. Am I allowed to say names? Mr. Sean. She has a one-on-one aide, and my daughter loves going to school. Most kids, you drag them out. My kid pops up in the morning. Sometimes I want to trick her on a Saturday, but I don't. And she just loves to go to school. Just like normal kids, and again, I mean no offense, kids act differently when they're at home versus when they go to school. The things that they can get my kid to do, and she is so happy when she comes home. And it has everything to do with the fact that I know she's safe, and they have her best interest at heart. If I have any problems whatsoever, I know I can go to Mr. Sean. If anything happens to my daughter, if she has a bruise, if she has a cut, if she falls down, the one-on-one that we have is amazing because I'm not looking to lay blame, but if something happens to her, I need to know what it is, not to lay blame. It's so if I have to take her to the doctors, I know what to tell them, and I don't look like the worst parent. I already feel like the worst parent, so, I don't need anybody's help with that. I need communication. And the class that she's in right now, it's amazing. She's only got 2 more years, but I can tell from the 2 years that she's had, and plus prior to that, she had quite a few teachers. The trust, it's a big deal. And we've got the history. I've been blessed where I was the mama bear, like I said, but 7 years ago, I was employed here at the Livermore School District. Obviously, nobody did a name check because I still couldn't believe I got the job because I have history with special education. And I was blessed because all of a sudden, I saw the other side. It's one thing to be the parent and fight for your kid like crazy, but to see the other side of the special education and throughout the district, I have yet to meet one person that doesn't care about our kids. And it's the most blessed feeling in the world to have that ability. And when I see what they've gone through, and by the way, you talk really good. I'm really impressed with you. It's really a blessing. So for all those parents out there that, you think you're going against the system and everything, I'll be the one to say, I know my zero.
We can
Have a little bit of confidence. They do have your best interests at heart, and they're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Start with Trustee Guzman.
First of all, this is phenomenal. Thank you. Exceeding every benchmark that the state puts on, that's great. Hearing the personal stories, the student at Sunset participating in the spelling bee for the first time, but also just hearing about, I think there's still bias about students with special needs, and there's hesitation for some to bring them into mainstream classrooms. And what's missing in that conversation, and what I'm hearing the evidence, is that the other students are also, when I say the students without special needs or don't have IEPs, are learning so much more, and compassion and the inclusivity and how to interact. And I think we're just going to be raising a better generation because of that. So again, doing all the work that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Gruen.
Thank you. So you mentioned the Learning Center and Push-In. I'm wondering if those are paraprofessional support, or are those kids getting direct instruction by a special education teacher too?
So with the specialized academic instruction, they would get support with the special education teacher. They spend, though, at least 80% of their day in the general education environment. So that support can come one of two ways: the special ed teacher coming in and providing that support within the general ed setting, or them going to the resource learning center, or to the learning center and getting that support. So it just depends. We still have to meet those specialized academic instruction needs. But the kids, as far as accessing the general education, it's usually para support that's there to help them access the general education.
At Junction, the resource teachers are actually pushing into the general education classroom supporting. So in the Learning Center model, there are paraeducators pushing into the general ed setting to support during that time, and when the students go into the Learning Center, that's where the special education teacher is supporting them. But when I was discussing how Junction is providing that push and support, that is from the teacher, that they're going into that general ed setting. So they're no longer having to pull out the kids for the resource support, which has made a huge improvement in their program there.
And then secondly, before I thank you for all of your hard work, tell me a little bit about paraeducator professional learning, and because paraeducators are phenomenal, and I think the more support, the more we can make them feel, the more we can hold on to them and make them feel like they belong is important. So I'm kind of interested in professional learning and perhaps other ways of fitting them in and making them feel like they belong.
Asking. This year, actually, we rolled out a monthly training for our paraeducators. So each month we have a different topic that we've been providing for them. And so each month I actually email all of our paraeducators in the district, and I tell them what the topic is going to be. And we've been hosting at Vineyard in the NPR in person, which has been great. I've noticed that when I provide chocolate, I get a better turnout as well. And they've been coming for the variety of different topics. So when they know what the topic is in advance, they sign up and they come, and they're very engaged and they're active participants in the activity. We started at the beginning of the year with around 25 attending each month, and now we've been getting up to 50 at every session, which has been amazing.
Wonderful. Well, and sharing about the student moving to the least restrictive environment is always a victory. So, thanks for sharing that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Trustee Pruso.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of comments. First is that this is going to make me sound like an 80-year-old woman, but it's interesting going to, especially to the elementary schools, and seeing the difference of what special education looks like compared to when I was a student. And it's really remarkable. And like people have already said, even just this week, I was reading in an elementary classroom, and there was a para in there, there's one-on-one aids, and it was just such a different experience than when I was in school. Everyone was secluded, they were separated, and then there wasn't this sort of inclusivity. And I think it's just, obviously, it's a great opportunity for all students, and I just appreciate the effort. I had one question. How are we doing on our sort of just keeping our special education teachers not keeping them, but how are we good with our numbers for our special ed teachers and our paraeducators? I know that we've had some issues the last couple of years with just being fully staffed. Where are we at on that?
Yeah, so we'll have some positions we have to fill this year. We didn't have a lot of new programming that we're developing, so that does help, and so we'll be moving some folks around also. So it's better than it's been in the last few years. Paraprofessionals, it's always an issue. I mean, we just have a difficulty filling those positions on a regular basis, although it's gotten a lot better than last year. I mean, last year it was a constant stress. This year it's less of that. We don't have as many contractors as we've had in the past. So it's gotten better, but we still have a long way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to say one more thing. Thank you to both of you guys. Clearly, a tribute to the parents and teacher who was here tonight and speaking on your behalf to what you guys are doing. But I would like to say personally, I've had several occasions over the past 4.5 years. I've had people reach out to me in the community who have had concerns about their children in special ed. And when I've turned it over to Frank, every single time he has been able to figure it out and quickly. And so I just really appreciate that because for having community members come and being anxious about their children, obviously is something we want to take care of, and you have always done that. And so I just want to say, in my experience, that you have always taken care of those families, and I really, really appreciate that effort. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Trustee Wong?
As always, Trustee Prusso took a lot of my comments, and the one question I had, she already asked. So, but I just want to echo all the praise and the appreciation for the work that you both do. And I know, Zandra, you've added a lot, and Frank has been thrilled to have you on board. You had high expectations, and you've met them. And so just the great work that you do, and I also hear a lot of praise everywhere I go, and really appreciate how much heart and hard work and intelligence and creativity that you bring to this job, and a very, very challenging job that you do so well. And I know when I go to the Tri-Valley SELPA meetings and I hear what's going on in other districts, I even more appreciate the work that you all do, you and your staff, and the tremendous success here in our district. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. And echoing some of those comments from Ms. Texera and Mr. Salvaggio, one of the things, like for folks that are watching, if you run a business or you just have a little budget at a place you work, one of the key things to anything you run is the budget. And the budget for special ed is something, you have a need, and some of it is mandated by law, and then you have funding, and the people who make the rules that mandate it don't send the money with the mandate. And so it's extraordinarily underfunded. So imagine running your sandwich shop, your restaurant, your Intel, whatever you're running, and someone takes over half your budget and doesn't give it to you and says, put out a better product every day. Deal with everything that comes at you with not enough money. And that's what you guys are doing. That's what most people that deal with special ed. And I think that for the longest time, what you've done a great job of doing this, the current version we have here, is making it less about special ed and just making it about education, and you're dealing with kids that might have some needs that they need to deal with, and you guys help level the playing field. And it's extraordinarily unfair what's happening. The federal government doesn't give us the money we need to meet their mandate, even though we'd meet the mandate without their mandate. And so I would call upon them. We're in a state that happens to have a supermajority in the legislature, which means if they support it, it goes right through. So we talked about this in some other things with ADA for the kids that aren't in special ed. But for Governor Newsom, and we have a very supportive Assembly member in Rebecca Bauer-Can, and in our state senator, but it's legislative. You need to fill the gap so that it doesn't burden the people who teach it. It doesn't burden the system when you're trying to meet these extraordinary needs of extraordinary kids, trying to make them achieve. So when you show improvement and achievement with that deficit, it's extraordinary. And it's simply a matter of, we talk about it all the time. This is simply a committee that makes a vote, and that vote goes before the governor, and the governor signs it. And that's it. Last year, people got rebates. There was a $100 billion surplus in the state. Education is one of the number one things in terms of the funding. So for those who listen, it's simply a legislative matter, a lobbying matter. It's just a matter of the state saying, this is a priority that we need to prioritize kids. It's no one else's problem. It's the state of California's problem, and everyone else is dealing with it. So while we have a supermajority of people who are supportive of this, instead of turning a blind eye to it and pretending it's not raining, let's put these kids under the umbrella and let's make this thing happen. It's not that hard to do. It's really, really easy, especially when you're giving rebates out last year, and we didn't take care of special ed. And so we really need to take care of that. And I know some folks watch. We might get that one viewer up at the state. Hopefully it's some staffer that's been around for 25 years, and they say, let's see if we can put this in.
Governor Newsom's watching.
He might be.
I let him know when our meetings are every month.
Hey, he did a great thing for education when they raised the ADA. And, we all have our different ideologies and stuff. But I know that education is valued and supported in this state. I got my public education here, years and years ago. But this one's being overlooked. And I think it's being overlooked because it's easy to overlook. And I don't think it should be overlooked anymore. You guys are doing great work, so thank you very much. Before we go into our action items, I've had a request if we could take a short, let's say, a 7-minute break, come back in at 2052. Thank you very much. Okay, we're back. It's 2053 after following a small break. And we're going to introduce 10-1, please. I believe this is kind of a board-driven item here.
Yes, trustees, this is in response to the request brought to us for the election of representatives to the Delegate Assembly. And we are honored to have one such delegate with us this evening. And so I'm going to ask the board to really conduct 3 different votes. There are 3 delegates on the ballot, and you are allowed to vote for 3. And so those are Diane Jones, she's from Fremont Unified. Sarah Prada is from San Leandro, and our own Christy Wong, running for CSBA delegate. And so I will ask President Bueno to conduct an election or a vote for each of the 3, and they should be voted for separately.
Correct. Okay, so we have 3, and I'll just say out the names, and if someone would like to make a motion on that one, then we'll take that motion and as normal. Diane Jones, Fremont Unified School District.
So my question is, if there's 3 spots and there's 3 people, I'm fine with voting for them, for all 3. They want to.
If, in this instance, normally we handle them
Yeah, how do you wanna do it?
separately, if we want to forego that formality. I just wouldn't, if someone had, there was someone on here that someone may not be comfortable with, or
Right.
someone that someone wanted to say something specific about, you can still do that. But if we want to run it as a slate, we can do that option maybe by head nod if someone's opposed to that and wants to run it together. So we're good with the slate?
You guys
Everyone's
okay
good?
with that?
Okay, so
I
I
mean, I
didn't take
thought
a motion.
if there was less spots, I would say, let's just vote for Christy to ensure that she gets in, but it sounds like there's
3
3
for 3.
spots, there's 3 people.
Okay,
I'm okay with that. So should I make a motion, or?
let's make a motion, please.
So I move that we nominate, or no, vote?
They've been nominated, yeah.
Diane Jones, Sarah Prada, and Christy Wong for CSBA Delegate Assembly.
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by trustee Prusso, moving the given folks as a slate for subregion 7B for CSBA Delegate Assembly. That's been seconded by trustee Guzman. Any questions on the motion? And Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Myself, aye. Trustee Druin?
Aye.
Trustee Guzman?
Aye.
Trustee Wong?
Aye.
President Bueno?
An enthusiastic aye for trustee Wong. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right.
your platform picture?
Yeah.
She didn't even give us her speech.
No campaign
So-
signs, nothing.
Oh, there's a huge bio.
I was
you can
very,
read.
very disappointed in your efforts of running this campaign. All right, moving along to 10.2, I'm going to introduce our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Ms. Teresa Fiskus, to share with the board the second period interim financial report.
Thank you, Superintendent Manshak. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Manshak, and Cabinet. Tonight, I'm here to present the 2022-2023 second interim financial report for board approval. So each year, the California Department of Education requires school districts to submit 2 certified financial reports. The first interim is as of October 31st and was brought to the board for approval in December. The second interim financial report is as of January 31st and is being brought for approval this evening. So for our second interim budget, we're projecting a beginning fund balance of $18,732,078. We have projected revenues of $203,653,104, with projected expenditures of $204,083,280, which results in a net ending fund balance of $18,301,902, which is a slight decrease from our beginning fund balance. So as of first interim, our ending fund balance was projected to be $23,403,382. We are now projecting a reduction of $5,101,480. It's mainly due to our increase in expenditures of $5,187,884. $4,923,134 of that is related to the competitive compensation adjustment approved by the board, which includes the 3% that was retroactive to July 1st and the 6% beginning March 1st. We also increased our budget $290,906 for some additional special ed services. And we had a reclassification of our indirect costs related to our restricted programs of $26,156. In addition, we did have a minor increase in revenues of $86,404. That's based on a small increase in ADA and a recalculation of our LCFF, which stands for our local control funding formula. So in our multi-year projection, we use several assumptions to come up with our projections. We are basing our assumptions on the governor's January budget proposal. So we are using the 8.13% COLA projected for 2023-2024, as well as the 3.54% COLA projected for the 2024-2025 school year. We are still calculating our projection using the 3-year average, as our third year out is our highest ADA. And so we are currently projecting 12,642 for average daily attendance. And we have also removed all one-time revenues and expenses from our out years. So we have removed $15.7 million in one-time funds, $6.4 million in prior year grant carryovers, and $1.5 million related to the textbook adoption. So our state offers pension plans for our state teacher retirement system as well as the public employee retirement system. The good news on one side is that CalSTRS rates are holding steady. They were 19.1% in the current year and are projected to remain at 19.1% for the next fiscal year as well as the second out year. However, the news is not so good at the CalPERS side of the house. So in the current year, we have a 25.37% CalPERS rate. We are expecting that to increase up to 27% in the next fiscal year, which results in an approximate increase to our budget of $946,768 for increased pension costs. In the 24-25 school year, we are projecting an additional increase to the CalPERS rate, increasing up to 28.1% for an additional increase in that year of $437,891. This chart here shows a summary of our multi-year projection. The most important piece of this is that we have a positive ending fund balance, and we meet the 3% required reserve for economic uncertainties. This projection is based on the assumption that we will reduce $8,450,000 in budget reductions in the 2023-2024 fiscal year, and an additional reduction of $10,250,000 in the 2024-2025 fiscal year. So what's next? We will continue along the 2023-2024 adopted budget process. We will attend all of the workshops regarding the governor's May revision, often put on by School Services of California. And we will hold our public hearing for the adopted budget as well as the local control accountability plan at the first meeting in June. With that, the superintendent's recommendation is to approve the 2022-2023 first interim report with a positive certification. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you very much. We have no public cards, so we'll close public comment on this item. Trustee Druin?
On the multi-year projection, we need to keep a 3% reserve, and I see that that number changes. What is it 3% of or compared to, or how does it change, just for my own knowledge moving forward?
And so the 3% is always based on our total general fund expenditures. And so it is 3% of, in 2022, 2023, it's 3% of the 204,083,280. And it would be that line across that slide.
Okay. All right. I see that on a question on that, it shows last year was a greater budget number, say about $7 million, $6.5 million. 22-23 shows up at $204 million on that same chart. 23-24 shows up at 197.
And that is due often to the grants we have. And so when we're awarded grants, we budget the full amount of the grant. However, often grants are spent over several years. And so we budget the full amount at the end of the year when we close the books. Any remaining balance in that grant falls to the bottom line and is re-brought up into the budget in the next year. Why you don't see that currently in our 2023-24 projection is because those amounts are still currently budgeted in our 2022-23 year. So once we close those books and we know the amounts of the grant fallout, that will be after we've brought the board the budget for adoption. And so those amounts will come back at first interim. You'll see a large increase in our expenditures at that time.
And I ask that not as a leading question, but simply for clarification to Trustee Druin's question about the 3% reserve. It would also appear as though it would have an impact to the reserve, the amount held in reserve. Because as the reserve number is higher, when the budget is higher, to keep it at 3%. So it would, when that money slides into the next fiscal year, the 3% would also have to be kicked up?
Correct. So when we bring the first interim report and we do increase those expenditures, we will also have to increase the reserve for economic uncertainty.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions, comments? Okay, this is an action item. I entertain a motion.
I mean, it looks different to me. Does Craig need to say that? Or is it just approve?
No second term financial. I get it. It's
last page.
I believe
The board president needs to read the
But we-
statement.
Okay, we can read that.
And then is there a motion, or is that
But
it?
it's an action item, right? So we take a vote on it, and then following it, and this usually, we have to sign this.
Should I vote on it first?
Yeah, let's do the vote.
Okay, so then I will make a motion to approve the 2022-23 second period interim financial report.
Correct.
Okay.
Second?
So you have a motion by trustee Prusa, it's been seconded by trustee Druin. Any question on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Trustee Wong.
Aye.
Trustee Druin.
Aye.
Trustee Guzman.
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Bueno.
Aye, and that motion carries unanimously. So as president of this governing board, certify that based upon the current projections and proposed potential modifications, reductions, that our district will be able to meet its financial obligations for the current fiscal year and subsequent 2 fiscal years. And then also, there's usually some paperwork that follows on that we have to sign off on. Mr. Van Schack and I sign off on. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. It was just written a little off.
I just want to make sure.
I appreciate it.
You know me, I just want to get it right.
Oh, yeah, I know you. Okay, the 10-3, please.
Okay, so we are bringing this back from the last meeting. This is the approval of proposed amendments to the Measure J Citizens Bond Oversight Committee bylaws. And as was requested, was requested by the board last time, we have some legal analysis. Remember, the issue was whether or not the board should have the authority to approve bylaws that were voted on or approved by the committee itself, an independent committee. And so I've asked Ms. Kim McNeely to step forward and provide the board with the legal analysis.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Van Schack, and Cabinet. Just a really quick recap of the conversation we had previously. You'll recall at the February 21st meeting, we brought forth proposed revisions to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, the CBOC, as we call them, bylaws, and those were presented to you. Again, just as a refresher, probably mostly to the community, at that meeting, the board asked us for some additional information, and that included a red line copy of the bylaw changes so that you could more easily identify those changes. Those were attached. You also asked for legal counsel clarification on the appropriate approval process or the order of approval. And so we have done both of those things for you. And I'm planning to just share the legal counsel recap because, of course, you have the bylaw information. So legal counsel did reconfirm that we are following the appropriate process, which is that CBOC proposes bylaw changes or amendments. We bring those to the board for approval, and then the CBOC will ratify after the board approves. I just want to summarize kind of the gist of legal counsel's analysis and why we believe that it's the correct process that we're following. This process does not compromise the independence of the CBOC to review and report on the expenditures of the program that are established in statute. So we are consistent with that independent oversight, and this doesn't compromise that. The CBOC does continue to provide a review and input on the bylaws, so that process hasn't changed. They are still the initiators of bylaw changes or amendments in consult really with staff and legal counsel. The process does, though, allow alignment of the CBOC bylaws with the policies and practices of the board so that we stay consistent, both of the organizations. And then approval by the board also maintains compliance with the law and district legal requirements so that the bylaws don't become inconsistent with the board requirements and laws and procedures. And then finally, the CBOC is in agreement, as you'll recall, with all the proposed changes, so they didn't have any question with what's before you or the proposed changes to that. And so if you'll flip to the next one. So the superintendent's recommendation continues to be that our Board of Trustees approve the proposed amendments to the Measure J Citizens Bond Oversight Committee bylaws, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Before we get into any possible questions, we have one public comment card on this. And I would call up Jerry Yallen. Good evening.
So who brought the items before you for approval? Not the citizens board, we didn't bring that. We did not ask you to approve changes. Matter of fact, the proposal of the changes were not brought up at the request of the board. The board said that we needed to review the bylaws. The staff decided to have legal counsel review the bylaws and give a presentation of your attorneys, not ours, because that attorney was hired by you, selected by you, represented you. This is the problem with the way this is set up. I was not contacted between the last meeting and this meeting. The staff that ostensibly provide us support didn't tell us that there had been consultation and that that was the position of your attorney. There's a problem with governance here. This is governance. This is the most basic thing in a democratic system. Government has to be orderly. Government has to play by the rules. If you have an independent committee, then they have to be independent. If we're not independent, then say so and make it formal. The checklist that is provided by the statewide organization of CBOX.
I don't want to interrupt your statement other than we're having a hard time capturing your audio. If you could just swing that over, please.
I apologize.
Thank you.
The state organization of CBOX provides a checklist of what needs to be so in order for the committee to be independent. This item is on their checklist. You are walking into a political trap. Now, maybe that trap was set up by the legislature and the law, so similar to the way that they institute mandates and then don't fund them. They've given you an independent group, which you're required to not allow to be independent. But you're making a statement by your vote. I'm not against the changes that are proposed. I'm for proper governance. Now, I've been in government operations for over 15 years of my life. I've been in a member of the court system since 1978.
Please add 1 minute. Just because of my interruption, we'll add 1 minute,
Thank
please.
you. I'm not advising you as an attorney, but I am telling you that you are walking into a trap with your vote here. I'm not trying to set the trap. I didn't create the situation, but it's being discussed in public what's required to be independent. And your view, if you vote on this, is that we're not. And if that's your message, that's your message. But we didn't ask for the revisions to be proposed. When they were proposed, we thought they were good, and so we adopted them. We did not ask for your approval. And your staff are bringing things forward to you without giving you those elements. And I think that there is a misunderstanding involved in that. Now, I would talk privately about the specifics because I don't believe that staff items should be discussed in a public meeting. But we're going to continue to do our job. That is correct.
We'll leave it at that on the comment, Mr. Young. Is there any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. President, one more thing. If this is our request, why is the presentation made by the staff and not by me as the chair? What I see in your other committees is that the chairs provide the presentation. So again.
I understand, I understand your point.
Be careful what you do.
On your comments, I'm just going to leave it on the comments and then leave it. Are you here, just a question I would have, are you here as representing the Citizens Oversight Committee Board as the chair?
Yes.
Okay.
And I want to clarify that since you've asked that question. We discussed this at the last meeting that we had. I specifically said that I would come to this meeting, both of these meetings, if you will, to make sure that you were advised of this. And I don't know whether you were advised that that's what I was going to do, but it was all public and it was all planned. So we didn't even have to have this discussion if we followed protocols on how things are run.
Okay. I just want to leave it open just because this is an agendized item. You're here representing that group in your capacity as the chair of that group, and open up in case there's no other further public comment, but in case there's any questions that the board members may have.
I have a clarifying question. So I think I'm trying to understand the process because I also reviewed what we received from legal. So what I'm hearing is just the term in itself as an independent committee, the board should not be involved. That's one. And then secondly, this is where I get confused. The bylaws were amended and accepted by the committee, the oversight committee. And it should have just stopped there. Does the board need to even approve the bylaws or just accept them is the question that I have. I think,
Understand.
is that this?
And is the question for Mr. Van Schack or Mr. Yellen? Or?
Well, I think that's what's up for discussion.
Okay.
I'm just trying to paraphrase what I think is the discussion. And would that be an accurate?
I think that's accurate. I think the question is whether or not the board has the authority to approve changes that have been authorized or enacted by the CBOC.
I understand. And just let me ask one question because it's right along that line. Just if we go back to the beginning when the group was founded and the original bylaws that are looking to be revised, amended, where did they come from? What was the origin and what was the process for the original bylaws? And I'm just saying from a historical perspective, if we can have that answered, it might help a little bit because I understand Mr. Yallen's point, well, I'm going to say the board's point, the citizens' oversight point, but I would like to understand the independency, and I know that that's always been a critical point, to be independent. And I don't want to say this is semantics because it's kind of a little hitch pin in the deal. So I'd like to, for myself, I'd like to understand how it was originally done because that might give us a little thought as to going forward how it's done. And I'm not sure if you can answer that, Mr. Van Schack or Ms. McNeely.
Yeah, I couldn't answer at this moment the origin of the bylaws. I'd have to research that.
Okay.
It's been around for a number of years, so it'd probably go back to our original CBOC.
Okay. Mr. John?
So it's an interesting dilemma. And my perspective, or something that I'm hoping for clarification on, is can you tell us a little bit how the CBOC is formed? Are they elected? Are they, because thinking about independence and thinking about, how do I say it, responsibility to the community because the 5 of us were elected by the community. And to me, this seems about the extent to which they are independent, because what if the CBOC decided that they wanted to, I can't think of an analogy. If they wanted to go beyond the purview of what we, the board, have decided is their responsibility, their box of independence, if they want to go beyond that, are they allowed to do that? So the question that I have is, how is the CBOC formed? Does the community select them? And I think that kind of can shape my understanding of the extent to which they can or should be independent or accountable to the community.
Yeah, they're not selected by the community. They're selected through an application process that they make to the district.
I can add a little bit from my experience because both Trustee Wong and I were on it the same year, a long time ago. But an announcement and a call was put out to the community to request interested parties to participate in the committee. And at some point, yeah, we had to submit an application of those interested parties, and then it just got from there.
Yeah,
And there's a designator.
And the applicants, you vote, the board votes on the applicants. And only upon the application isn't enough to make us a member of this committee. We're appointed by you for a specified period.
Term, yes. And also, the driver behind it, if I understand it, and it's been a long time, I know I'm rusty on it, but Mr. Van Schack, maybe you can help me clear it up. I believe that there's specific criteria based on like I don't want to say area of expertise, but that people have to come from a region of the community. And that's part of a statute as a component of having a public bond. So there has to be someone, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but someone from a finance, someone from a taxpayers organization, there's a specific thing, a parent group, there has to be people like that.
That's correct. Different segments of the community have to be represented.
And that is by statute, and that's all a condition of. And then those people fill in their applications. That list comes to us. We make a motion to approve that list. That goes forward. Those people get accepted. We come here. We swear them in, and then they're on this body. And then there's criteria for them to report. And I believe it's annual, the annual reporting. I don't know if it's quarterly, but
it's once. I believe it's one report, an annual report, once a year.
We're required to give. This is one of the vague elements. We're required to give one report per year as to whether you're in compliance, whether the district's expenditures are in compliance with the bond that we're associated with. And by the way, this issue is on any of your CBOCs. If you have other CBOCs for other bonds, same issue's going to arise. We're a Citizens Oversight Committee. That's the title.
Right.
And if we tried to, I don't know, open a grocery store because we all thought we'd want to do that in the name of CBOC, then that wouldn't fit with our bylaws. And you could stop us because you have the authority to stop us. But
hypothetically,
how would we have the authority to stop you?
Yeah.
Well,
If what we're voting on now is the bylaws and you changed the I'm not saying, obviously, I read through your changes and they're great. Like, there's no issues with them. Clearly, you don't have issues with them. You all voted on them. But I think to Trustee Druin's point, like, if we are voting on the bylaws and you have the ability to change the bylaws and maybe they go outside, I'm not saying that is going to happen. I'm just trying to think of why the legal team has said this is how we're supposed to do it. I'm just having questions about that.
they're your legal team.
Or I don't know, whatever legal teams.
If we wanted a legal team, you'd have to pay for our legal team.
Right.
We aren't asking you to pay for a legal team. We didn't ask for any of this. We didn't even ask that the proposal be made that the bylaws be changed. Your staff did that.
Okay.
So the problem is, what if you have control of the bylaws, then you control us. That is simply the way it is. If you have control, if the board has control of the bylaws, then we're not independent. It doesn't mean that we're free to do whatever we want. We have to stay within the law, just as you do. That's what I said about governance. Governance is hard. It's never been easy.
You know, I look at this issue, and it's kind of the chicken and the egg kind of thing. And I'm really curious to find out the origin of the bylaws.
I think
Ms. McNeely, maybe
Yeah,
you
she
can help us
knows.
with that?
I think I can clarify a couple of points.
Okay.
So a couple of things, both with regard to this set of revisions and then the original bylaws. The original bylaws were prepared by legal counsel and approved or reviewed by the original Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and then brought to the board for approval. So the process that we're recommending now is what has been done every previous set of bylaws. And the reason for that, I think, as I shared before, is to make sure that there's expertise with regard to the legal requirements and that we're consistent with the procedures and policies of the board. So that's part of the foundational thinking. And then maybe just maybe not a complete recollection of process. The reason that we brought the bylaws to the CBOC is because we had many new Citizens Bond Oversight Committee members in the last year, and many of them had not had a refresher on bylaws or process. And so we recommended agendizing it. We do review every agenda with the chair. They actually create the agenda and have the ability to decide what is or is not on each CBOC agenda. We did bring that forward as a suggestion to refresh and bring up to speed the new CBOC members. And as part of that, legal counsel recommended to the CBOC that we make sure that that the bylaws were compliant with current law and current operating procedures of the CBOC. So the order of events was really initially a training with the new members about the bylaws and Brown Act requirements so that they all had that information. And in the course of that, legal counsel recommended to staff and the CBOC that we make the bylaws consistent with current law and the way that they currently operate. So the CBOC had the ability to include that on their agenda or not and chose to have the bylaws on the agenda for December.
Okay.
Hopefully
That
that
helps.
clarifies a couple.
It
That
seems
clarifies
a
my
little bit like the
question.
process, like for policy changes, that when we're just updating policy changes to reflect new laws, it's a similar, sort of a similar process.
Most of it was that, and then the operating of the CBOC. Like one example that I can think of right off the top of my head is the bylaws still reflected the original formation of the CBOC, which had staggered terms. That's no longer necessary because the CBOC is naturally now staggered in terms, and there's no reason to have a one-year term any longer for CBOC members. So the law allows two-year terms with 3 terms, and we just cleaned up the bylaws to reflect that. So, it is the reality of a more mature CBOC, at least with regard to a few of the changes, and I can certainly paraphrase the others if that's of interest at this point.
Okay. That does help on the origin. I would agree with the necessity for independence. It has to be independent. That's the spirit of it. But also, with a rotating group, there's no obligation. Like if, say, people were to drop out, that institutional knowledge, the bearer of that, I think, has to be with the district. There's no independent budget for the CBOC where they could go out and retain legal counsel, is there?
Legal counsel is provided to the CBOC, but the district pays for that.
But the district pays for that. Okay. All right. Anyone have any questions on it? Any further questions or comments? It's somewhat of a, I think as presented, it presents somewhat of a conundrum to me. But the clarifications, I feel as though, not that the way things have always been done is always the way you go forward, but in this instance, the bylaws were drafted, I think that if the CBOC is given an opportunity, even if it's in their own bylaws, that says, should the change to the bylaws come by the district, that the CBOC has the right to, or if they were to come to us and say, we are against these, then I think that would be against the spirit of independence. But given the fact that the CBOC is in sync with the changes, even if those changes weren't originated with them, that fact to me puts us in sync. Although it may go against the ideology of independence, I think that you're still in sync. So my suggestion would be, for me, to prevent that in the future would be that that there's something that's denoted to ensure that independence, that if there is a bylaw change, as has been discussed, in theory, the CBOC could bylaw itself into an independence that may not serve in the best interest or in the spirit of this process. Conversely, the district could do the same and take the independence away from the CBOC. But if the bylaws were to reflect that independence and that any changes to the bylaws had to be approved by the CBOC, I think that that would maintain the independence. It just seems like we're synced up here, but it's more of an ideological put to us as maybe a future trap. I don't know.
I think my thinking is, I'm interested to know about best practices regarding CBOCs and how other districts do this, because I was on one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you're reliant on the district to provide information. You're reliant upon the district to set up the meetings, to turn the lights on, to get data, to give access. So there's a lot of hand-holding in the independence. And I think that this is something that's requires more looking at and see if there's other ways of supporting this, because I think that, it's a valid concern. It's an interesting dilemma, but at least in my thinking about it, I think that trying to understand and give as much independence while providing supports and allowing them to fulfill the mission that the board has given is, the purpose of the CBOC.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this? Okay. Prior to taking any action on this one, we're going to take a short break. I had a personal request for a short break, and if we could break until 9:40. Okay. So we're adjourned temporarily till 9:40. Thank you very much, and we're back. It's 21:38. Okay, on this last item, 10.3, we've had pretty robust discussion. Is there anyone else? We have no public comment. We've closed that. Is there any more discussion on the board's part? Okay, the thought I have on this is that as a district, we've enjoyed extraordinary citizen support for education and everything else. It sounds like right now we are in sync with the CBOC literally, but there may be a need to have some further discussion to make sure that we maintain the spirit. We're in compliance with the law, but to maintain the spirit of this, the independence, and if there's change. And it might just be a matter of another small change to bylaws. It might be a little side letter, whatever that is, so that we make sure that we maintain the spirit, which will ensure that we maintain community support, which has always been very broad-based. And it sounds like through the discussion that everyone is in sync with that. So with that being said, I would ask that we table this item if there's no objection, and that we give our administration staff and the CBOC proper time to go over this. There's nothing timely on this, Mr. Van Schaak?
Yeah,
Not
I
that I'm
agree.
aware
If
of,
it's
no.
not time, if there's not a time, I'd rather wait and make sure everyone's been
Yeah.
able to say their.
This group has worked very well. It's by statute, and it's a really good setup that works, and it's all mandated. So my suggestion would be that we table it if there's no objection. Okay? All right. So
Just to be clear, Mr. President, you're asking that we reconvene district staff, perhaps legal counsel with the CBOC as an entity and try to bind a resolution to the question of whether or not the board ultimately has the responsibility or authority to approve changes in the bylaws made by the CBOC itself. Is that kind of what I'm getting?
Maybe it's a chronology of how the process was developed, and I don't want to make it as though it's a litigious matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the back end, there's a litigious side, but in here, it's simply a matter of maybe it's a few conversations.
Yeah.
Everyone knows everyone on this thing, and these folks have all been approved and voted in to their positions, and everyone's done a really good job, and we've had great reporting. So to maintain that relationship and to keep within the spirit that we have of independence and great oversight, and public trust, that we take the time that's needed between the two groups to have those discussions and then bring forth something that is unified. If we're able to do that, and I think we are, but
I'm sure we will.
I won't speak for the board on this, but I think I'd be a lot more comfortable if it's a unified message and that both parties are serving, not only the exact specifications, but the spirit of it.
Right.
Everyone good with that?
Yeah, I would just say the way that it has been set and with the thoughts of the CBOC, that either voting yay or nay on this, neither one is going to solve this. So I think that, coming up to an agreement somehow or other, setting this aside, right? I mean, I think tonight, if we...
Just table it and you guys have a look, and
okay.
It does sound like there's a couple little bugs there, and work those out and bring it back. Okay. All right, now we're going to go into, there's 11, these are consents. We believe we have 8 of them in 11 this time, 11-2 through 11-9. We have no public comments on these.
President White, I move that we approve consent items 11.2 through 11.9 in their entirety.
I second that.
We have a motion by trustee Prusso. It's been seconded by trustee Guzman to move 11.2 through 11.9 in their entirety. Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Trustee Guzman?
You caught me in mid. Yes.
Sorry.
Aye.
Trustee Druin?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Trustee Wong?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And we're going to move to our consent resos. Let's see, I think
It's just a one.
just one, number 41 for the fiscal year.
President White, I move that we approve resolution number 41, 2223.
Second.
Motion by Prusso and been seconded by Druin. And any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk?
Myself, aye. Trustee Wong?
Aye.
Trustee Druin?
Aye.
Trustee Guzman?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye, and that motion carries unanimously. We didn't remove anything separately, so we'll start with trustee Wong this evening. I'm not going to let trustee Prusso steal your thunder.
Yeah, go first. Okay, so I attended the TK Kinder Enrollment Fair, which was great, very well attended, lines out the door, and really cute to see the little Kinder and TK kids come, and all the principals in one room. That was pretty cool, too. I've been attending meetings of the Equity and Inclusion Committee, which has been very active, and they've been very thought-provoking, interesting, and important discussions. We are preparing for CSBA Legislative Action Week next week, where we'll meet with our local elected officials about issues that are important to us, as school folks. And I think we all participated in Read Across America, as did many, many people in our community. It was so much fun on social media to see pictures of our local elected people and leaders in the community, everybody turn out and read to kids in schools. And I want to personally thank our mayor, who I invited to come read at Maryland, and he had a really packed schedule that morning, and he made time for them. So I really appreciated that. Yes, he is. And at Altamont Creek, I believe. And he recorded the mayor's report. He was very busy. And Trustee Prusso and I attended the Pedrosi Young Scholars Family Social, which is always a really heartwarming, a really great event to see all those kids, and it's bigger and bigger every year. And then on Saturday, I attended Family Science Day at the Livermore Library with the Quest Science and other groups, and also a great event. And they're working on planning a Livermore, let's see, what's it called? The Livermore Youth Climate Summit in September, which can be really exciting. So we'll learn more about that as we go. And then tomorrow, I think we'll be attending Youth Build. I think they're calling it a milestone event. And then Thursday, Science Odyssey. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Trustee Guzman?
Yes. Okay, so a lot has happened. I too also attended the TK and Kindergarten Open Registration event hosted by the school district at Robert Livermore Community Center. Under the leadership of Tracy Christmas and our executive assistant Jessica Torres, the event was seamless. In addition, with the representatives from all elementary and K-8 schools, it was great to see local community-based organizations such as the City Library and Access Healthcare there as well to offer their services and help families. I then attended Granada's Safe and Sober Grad Night fundraiser at a local winery before attending Livermore High School's theater performance, Queens. The students did a phenomenal job in relating the story of King Henry VIII and his wives. Thank you to Principal Joe Mounier for the invitation to witness the 5th grade leadership class lead their school in their Choose Love assembly. I definitely enjoy being among and celebrating students. Also, thank you to Principal Andrea Tapia for inviting me to her school, Altamont Creek, to participate and read Across America. I had the pleasure of reading the book, The Couch Potato, aloud to 3 different grades and classrooms. It was a very cute book, one that I had yet to read, but it was very relevant to our current students. As I mentioned, I'm looking forward to participating in the spring activities and enjoying, hopefully, this warm weather. Will it come? I found out I think we're doing 2 more weeks of wet rain, but I'm looking forward to sunshine. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Trustee Drone?
I too have been pretty busy. I visited 2 schools, Lawrence Elementary and Del Val, and was impressed by both school sites. The Leader in Me program is phenomenal. Students led me around campus and essentially taught me about the culture and the community that they have. The job that the administration and staff has done to make visible the gains that they're making regarding documenting growth and challenges regarding math on the school campus is amazing. I also, shout out to Mr. Sean's classroom. They were making soup and cake. It was awesome. And Del Val, I was also impressed by the programming, the focus on alt-ed population in policies and procedures, and pleased with the student-centered focus of the faculty and the staff. It was just a pleasure to visit both school sites. I too was at Altamont Creek and read to students about why dragons love tacos and tried my best to explain what it means to be a board member to first graders. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Trustee Prusa?
Okay, just like everyone else, we've stayed busy the last couple weeks. I think we're gearing up to busy time. Also attended the kindergarten enrollment fair. Also, we had the Livermore High School Expo. And with Trustee Wong, we were at the Pedroza Young Scholars Dinner. And just for those who don't know what the Young Scholars for the Pedroza program is, I just wanted to just give you a really quick. The program selects 5th graders who have earned a place on the Maryland Avenue Elementary School Principal's Honor Roll. And then these students receive age-based targeted support as they progress through through grades 6 all the way through 12th grade. The program is designed to help and encourage these students to succeed academically in their middle school and high school years and to be better prepared for entering college or vocational training program. And that each year a new group of 5th grade students is invited to enter the program. I believe there's 60-something students now. And every year they have a family dinner. Then Christy and I were able to, a bunch of you guys were here too. There were, I guess I should say it wasn't just Christy. It was mostly Christy and I, but there were other people. It was great. Also got to go to Read Across America at Altamont Creek, and the way that I describe who I am is that I'm the boss of the superintendent. And then I ask the kids if they know who my boss is, and I tell them their parents are my boss. And they think that's pretty fun. And then I was also able to attend the winter concert for the LHS choir, which was really great. Now, Mr. Felice has always got a great show and program, and so it was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Went to a couple of those events. Yeah, you go to the events, and one thing that's encouraging is when you go there, and this year there's a little bit of a change in the TK registration. It was a really good flow. I've been there several years, and so for Miss Christmas, who ran it this year, and her staff, they did a really nice job, had a really nice flow to it. People were able to get inside. It was very well represented with cabinet and teachers and principals and school nurses, and it was very well run, and people had a lot of assistance, and there was laptops, and it sounds like the numbers are good. And thanks to Livermore, Robert Livermore for hosting us over there. And that's all I've got on that, other than for anyone who might have missed it. Granada High School won the Division I Boys Regional Championship tonight and is going to the state championship, Division I against Notre Dame. So that is Notre Dame's a high school. It's not the Notre Dame. So yeah, it's a really big deal.
Yeah, that is.
So congratulations to Coach Q over at Granada High School and his staff and those amazing players.
That's a perfect segue into what I wanted to mention this evening. A number of different accomplishments over the last months. It's just been amazing. We had the Solo Ensemble Festival at Livermore High and some amazing musicians. As President Bueno just pointed out, we have a basketball team at Granada High School, one of the top 2 basketball teams in the state, which, given the size of our state, it's amazing. But I want to take a moment to discuss how proud we've been, not just of the accomplishments, but the way in which our students have conducted themselves during these successes. Last Saturday was a great example. Both boys and girls basketball teams played in the semifinal round of the Northern California playoffs. So the top 8 teams in the state played in the semifinals. And so packed gym, both sides, full, people on both ends. Incredible spirit, incredible crowd. And in a day and age in which, you turn on YouTube and you see parents out of control and kids out of control and people screaming at the refs, none of that. Our kids conducted themselves in just an amazing manner. They were vocal, but they were supportive of the team. They weren't screaming at refs. It was just really a proud moment to see how our students conducted themselves, both in victory and defeat, because we experienced both that evening, and both of those teams handled it the way they should. The boys were victorious, and they acted like they'd been there before, and the girls lost by a few points, and they were incredibly gracious at the end of the game. They were proud. They congratulated the other team. It was just a moment where, when you see how our students conduct themselves, and especially we talk about graduate profile, what we want our students to look like when they leave us. Just Saturday was a great example, and being able to watch that and see these young adults acting the right way. I mean, it's one thing to win, it's another thing to win the right way. And it was just really a proud moment, and I've seen it a number of times this year, whether it's music or sports or a number of different situations. I think it's just valuable for us to take a moment and say, you know what, our staff, our coaches, our teachers, all of our educators in our community, our parents have a lot to be proud of. So that was a great moment for me, and I'm excited about the state championship, but I'm even more excited about the way that the players and the fans made me feel as a representative of this district. So that's my 2 cents for tonight, and until next time, hoping for a great championship game on Friday.
Thank you. And everyone's welcome to come out. Where's it going to be at? Do we know yet? Does it have a venue yet? It's in Sacramento? Oh, at the Kings? Okay, the arena. Yeah, Arco. Oh, it's not Arco anymore, isn't it? It's downtown. It's downtown. Yeah. Okay. With no further business, 21:55, we're adjourned.
Hi, my name is Carla Brown.